Yes, so we begin from here, end of page number 25, and yeah, this one. Chitraji, would you read? Yeah, you're muted still, Chitraji.
Oh, sorry. Out of apprenticeship to ignorance, wisdom upraised him to her master craft, and made him an archmason of the soul, a builder of the immortal secret house, an aspirant to supernal timelessness. Freedom and empire called to him from on high, above mind's twilight and life's starlit night. There gleamed the dawn of a spiritual day.
Yes. So, we know what an apprentice is, when we are working under somebody. So, as if ignorance in the beginning is necessary, and that's the reason why it is there. The veils of ignorance are necessary because in these times of half lit or twilight ignorance, maybe we see little but we don't see it fully. In these times our being is preparing itself as if to receive more and more light. And as mother has also told so many at many several places and in several forms, mother shares that whenever the being is fully ready, only that much of grace that the person is able to receive. Otherwise, if too much of grace comes, too much of light dawns, the being is not strong enough to take it in its full capacity. It can even shatter. So earth also collectively, if we talk about earth and collective human evolution, as and when human beings are becoming ready to receive more and more light, as and when the veils of ignorance are being shed. So, as if now the apprenticeship to the ignorance was now getting over. It had its role, but now it was not needed anymore. Out of apprenticeship to ignorance, wisdom appraised him to her mastercraft. So, if you are working well as an apprentice, so you get an appraisal, you kind of get promoted. So now he got promoted to be the archmason of the soul. So he's building his own inner temple so that the soul can manifest itself in its fullness, in its richness. That's what he is now, the stage that he's now going through. That the ignorance, the veils of ignorance so far were needed. The mind's lid, the reason, the intellect, they were all needed so far. But now, owing to the growth of consciousness, they are not needed anymore. So the ignorance task is done. It's not needed. Being a separate self was needed so far, but now it's not required. The ego is not required. Mother shares at many places. Tell the ego that your time is gone. And it's not before this that we could tell the ego that your time is gone. No, whenever a being feels ready, that yes, I have suffered enough, I have gone through pains enough, and I see that I have been serving the ego through all these years. Now I see that it is not necessary. I don't have to do it. I don't have to serve the ego. So now, when I feel ready in myself, then I can say, a kind of an inward sankalp that we make that now your time is gone. So wisdom appraised him to her mastercraft. Through his wisdom, now he will be becoming the archmason of the soul. He will be building his own temple of the soul. A builder of the immortal's secret house. Why secret? Because forms deceive. Forms deceive. We often find ourselves drenched in unworthiness. How can I be a divine servant? How can I, who I feel so unworthy, how can I be a divine servant? What will divine do through, do anything through me? I'm not capable, I'm not fit. So a builder of the immortal's secret house. And yet all of us hide in themselves this secret divinity. There is no person, no matter if I am a criminal or a terrorist, doesn't matter how ugly I may be socially, the divine resides in each one of us. And that's why secret house, immortal's secret house, an aspirant to supernal timelessness. And there, it's kind of, aspiring to be the master of oneself. So far, I have been swayed by the thoughts. So far, I have been swayed by the feelings, emotions, the bodily demands, as if I was serving them. But now I am becoming more and more ready to be my own swarat. This word is used in Sanskrit, swarat and smarat, samrat, as we say in for the raja or the king. That comes in the coming lines. Freedom and empire called to him from on high. So now the journey of transformation that is happening within Ashwapati, he is called on to be free of the uh, subjection of mental, vital, and the physical demands. Now he is appraising himself to be master of himself, master of all the energies that usually dominate us. So that's the true freedom, that's the true liberation. Swarat, master of one's own self. And then empire, being a samrat. So now with this capacity, being a master of himself, now he has the, if I can say, the patrata. Now he has that capacity that he can lead people. He can be the samrat, or the king to people, leader of humanity. Freedom and empire called to him from on high. Now he got this call for being a swarat and a samrat. Above mind's twilight and life's star-led night, there gleamed the dawn of a spiritual day. Just shedding away of all the obscurities that keep this immortal light away from us. This light is present throughout our life, but we feel that we have really come too far away. And yet we are never, never far away, because that is what our essence is. So, as the veils of ignorance were shed, as the mind's half lit uh, ignorance was gone, he was kind of, it was shed away, it was shattered. He did not have to now think through the mind in order to understand universe, in order to understand himself. He did not have to use those goggles, limiting goggles. So, what was open to him was the dawn of a spiritual day. Usually we have a night, and the only light we have is coming from the stars. That's how the mind works. It gives us some information. It does not give us the true large picture. It does not have that capacity. The mind, the finite mind, does not have that capacity. But so far, so good. So the mind did its work, reason had its role to play. But now, when the being is ready and the reason is not required, then he is just open to the light of the spiritual day. The night is not required anymore. He's capable to have, he's strong enough to kind of, have in him the light of the spiritual day, which will manifest itself out through his mental, vital, and the physical being. So please share if any thoughts on these few lines. Yeah, it's almost referring to the reign of spirit. Now the reign of ego is over and the reign of spirit comes into picture. Beautiful, really very beautiful. So let's then, if not any comments, uh, take up the next lines. Yes, who would like to read?
I'll read.
Yes, Radhika,
As
please.
yes, As so he grew into his larger self, humanity framed his movements less and less. A greater being saw a greater world. A fearless will for knowledge dared to erase the lines of safety. Reason draws that bar, mind soar. Souls dive into the infinite. Can I read it again?
Yeah, why not? Please do it. Yeah.
As so he grew into his larger self, humanity framed his movements less and less. A greater being saw a greater world. A fearless will for knowledge dared to erase the lines of safety. Reason draws that bar minds soar. Souls dive into the infinite.
Yes. So now this, we talk about growth of consciousness. More and more the veils are shed, the consciousness expands. So we use the word expands, but it's more like shedding away of the veils because the consciousness is already full into itself. It is already infinite. Why we feel limited is owing to the veils of the ignorance. So the veil of the limited mind, the veil of considering myself as this limited physical being, and the veil of considering myself as my feeling, my thought, my emotions. So that is the bounding that we set on ourselves. Huh? And as Ashwapati is moving away from these bounds, he is growing as if into his larger self, as if he's kind of joining back to the continent which forever belonged to him, that we talked earlier. The ego joined back to it, to the continent, the larger continent. So as he grew into his larger self, humanity framed his movements less and less. So the limits of normal human nature, which we call as normal, they did not tie him up anymore. We have these physical needs of the sleep, the food, and somebody should validate my emotions and all these things that go around being a limited human being. So the limits of humanity were not able to capture or to reduce his essence anymore. Humanity framed his movements less and less. It's reducing in degrees, that he's not like an ordinary human being. A greater being saw a greater world. So as his vision is expanding, he is becoming a greater being connected with the whole of humanity, the whole of creation, and his vision also is towards a greater world. He sees more possibilities that human beings are capable of, and not just the limited face values that we usually perceive. We do not go beyond the face values. The moment I see a person, maybe my family, my relative, I just stop there. I just know that I know this person, how would he behave. So we just keep on limiting ourselves, and parallelly we keep on limiting the other persons around us. So this did not stop him anymore. The limit of his mind did not stop him anymore, because the mind's limit was shed. A fearless will for knowledge dared to erase the lines of safety. Reason. So reason draws that bar. So reason or intellect is useful so far we are living in ignorance. It saves us, it protects us. It's like almost that the line that Sita had when in Ramayana, Lakshman was in the forest and he had to go away in the search of Ram, who went for the golden deer. So now Sita was alone at home, so he said that, okay, let me give this line, and you'll be staying safe in the bounds of this line. So this is how reason protects when we are living in ignorance. It protects us from the Ravana. It protects us from straying too far and going up high in the air. Reason has the capacity to keep me grounded, because reason works on facts, right? But when the spirit is ready to just manifest itself out, the reason has no stand. It is just as if, a tsunami comes and all the walls are broken away, no matter how strong they are. They don't have the capacity to stand in the light of spirit. Reason has no need to be, because the spirit is all wise. The spirit is all knowing. The spirit is full of intuition. So the reason is not needed there. Reason is needed so far I am living as an apprentice to ignorance. So that's where, a fearless will for knowledge, wanting to see the truth behind everything. This fearlessness to go close to each and every movement of life. Because the more we go close to each and every phase of our life, we see that the truth is shining behind the face value. It is not so ugly as it appears from a distance. Face values deceive. So, this fearlessness of going close, going intimate to each and every movement of life, this fearless will for knowledge, it dared to erase the lines of safety that reason, usually draws. That stay here and you will be protected. If you go out, God knows, what will happen. So that was not needed anymore. And it draws a bar on the mind soar, as if the mind is wanting to soar high above its limits, but it is not able to, because reason is stopping it again and again. As if imagine that there is a kite and a long thread is kind of anchoring the kite onto the ground. Now the kite wants to soar high, but it is not able to, because that anchor on the ground is protecting the kite from soaring high above. So this is how reason becomes a bar. When the growth of consciousness has gone, ahead, it becomes a bar, and it limits the mind's soar into the overmind and, the higher realms of intuition and insights, which are irreasonable. They do not work according to logic. They do not work according to reason. So one may say, oh my God, you were telling me that this building has to be made, and we spent 10 years on this building to be made, and now you are saying abandon the project. So the reason does not work here, but the divine knows that the work is done. What was necessary was not that the building must be completed. What was necessary was that all the beings who were involved in the process of the building, they were transforming along with the building as it, kind of got constructed. So building was just a bahana, it was just an excuse. And this, so people who just work through the mind or the reason or intellect, it just boggles them up. How can this be? I don't want to work with this person anymore. But this is how, mystics work usually. So so the reason draws back, as if it pulls back the mind's height that it wants to achieve, and the soul's dive into the infinite, as if the soul wants to go deeper and deeper, deeper and deeper, because the soul is fearless. It does not have any fear. So the more we go fearlessly closer to any phase and movement of our life, we are actually working through the soul. Fearlessness is a capacity of the soul. It is not coming from the ego. It is not coming from the separate self. And reason does not have a hold here. Reason fails. It just kind of, not needed. It disappears. And so far, it appears as if it was kind of, stumbling or prohibiting soul's dive into the infinite, but it cannot do anymore because it is not required. The reason and intellect is not required. Yeah. This is what we call as life's unfolding. Usually how we live life is always patterns on, patterns and patterns are going on, and that's why life becomes so monotonous. But the moment we begin to open ourselves to this vastness within us, the wideness within us, it actually begins to unfold. Life every day is a new day. The activities may be similar, many mundane chores may be still there, but they will not be mundane, because they are happening through a different place within myself. So even brushing every day may reveal things to me which I fail to notice. So this is called unfoldment of life, when we become porous to grace, pour us to divine as it is in its fullness. Feel free to share whenever there is anything. Yeah, who would like to read? Yes, Radhika.
Yeah, like what touched me was this line, a fearless will for knowledge, dare to erase the lines of safety. I don't know,
Yeah,
somehow it,
yes, yeah.
I just wanted to say.
Yes, they touched me too, actually. It's very, and if we look at our own lives, wherever we have, kind of propelled ourselves to go close fearlessly to anything, it has always expanded us. It has always given us something new in life, crossing our own thresholds. Yeah, it's a beautiful line. Yeah, who would like to read next?
Even his first steps broke out small earth bounds and loitered in a vaster, freer air. In hands sustained by a transfiguring might, he caught up lightly like a giant's bow, left slumbering in a sealed and secret cave the powers that sleep unused in man within.
Yes. So now, as he is expanding and growing into a greater being than the ordinary human being, even his first steps, this is the beauty, and connect it with each one of us, connect it with our own life. Even the first steps that we take towards this limitlessness within ourselves, they have the capacity to give something, kind of spill out something. They have their own fragrance. So it's the best social service actually that we can do, to move towards, as if I can use these words, to move towards our own limitlessness. And in effect, by the side effect, it will definitely be spilling out its fragrance, the social service to humanity, which most of us wants to do. How can I help others? How can I help others? This is how we help others, by being closer and closer to our own limitlessness. Even his first steps broke our small earth bounds and loitered in a vaster, freer air. So earlier, if you may remember these lines, there was this lines that we read, imprisoned air of the ego, the separate self. So whenever we are stuck in our own story in the head, it's a stale air, it's like an old air, a rotting air. So that is not there anymore in this case. The separate self has ceased to be, it does not exist anymore. So the whole vastness of the air is available to Ashwapati to breathe and to loiter around, to, just at ease, carelessly, to kind of explore this air, move around. So these first steps that he's taking, baby steps, if one can use that word, the first steps towards limitlessness, they broke our small earth bounds, all that limits me as a human being. Because who I am is the soul. The soul is animating the human body. The soul is limitless in nature. And that's why many a times we feel so suffocated, that you want to do something but you're not able to, because the earthly nature does not allow you to do so. So it keeps on binding ourselves as if again and again. So that earthbound, those limits of material nature did not stop, as if they started to break with his first steps, and loitered in a vaster and freer air. Now he was able to move freely. There were no limits to the mind, there was no limits of the reason, there were no limits of the pulls of the vital, and even the demands of the physical, that feed me, otherwise I will starve, these kind of demands that the physical being put in in hands sustained by a transfiguring might. Now this life force, the divine, is working uh, in his might on this being called Ashwapati, in hands which were sustained by a transfiguring might, the Shakti, the divine force. It and Ashupati's hand are now getting the power from that divine source, owing to the ceasing of the separate self. It is connected to the life force, the Shakti. He caught up lightly like a giant's bow. Now he is able to lift up the giant bow, which appears so heavy usually to the human nature, but he, owing to the fact of his ceasing of being a separate self, he is able to pick that bow up very lightly, effortlessly. Now this exactly reminds us of when Ram was able to pick up the bow in Ramayana, which was so heavy. No, not any other a king or princess were able to do that, but Ram came and he kind of picked it up effortlessly. So that which appeared like a big deal was now done by Ashwapati effortlessly, very lightly, as if it's his nature now. He caught up lightly like a giant's bow, left slumbering in a sealed and secret cave the powers that sleep unused in man within. So, all these powers, these different infinite possibilities, capacities, they're all lying latent within us, as if in a secret cave. And he was able to lift them up from this deep slumber, owing to the fact that now he was ready for it. If these powers come into ego's hands, they can be misused. We have heard in mythology the stories of asuras using powers for their own ego and selfish motives. And that is the reason that only as the veils of ignorance are shed one by one, we become available to these latent powers, because the being is not ready yet. The being is not ready. And this is what we were talking about, being an apprentice to the ignorance. So that was necessary so far. But now the being is fully ready. He will not be misusing the powers. So now the giant's bow, which appeared so heavy, it appears very light to lift up these powers, waking up these powers, the powers that sleep unused in man. And sometimes a whole lifetime would pass by and one would keep on sleeping. Such is the power of our sleep. Such is the power of ignorance. And ignorance has almost, if not 2020, so if one can say 19 and 20, almost virtually similar power as what we call as the divine. It the same, I was just reflecting yesterday, the same words that we use for the divine, we can actually use for ignorance or ego. That which is never born, which can never die. Ego is actually a mental construct. It is never born and it can never die, because it's a phantom. It arises up from the ashes again and again, again and again. It is immortal in itself. Ignorance is immortal. And just like that, knowledge and divinity is also immortal, because it's the shadow of the divine. So the properties are, I may be wrong, but I was just reflecting over it, and it appeared that the properties are so alike. Fathomless zero, we were talking in the symbol dawn. And even when we go to the infinite divinity, we say that it is fathomless. We cannot know itself ever fully. So, there are stark similarities between these seeming dualities. Yeah. What happened next? Let's go through. Keep sharing if there is anything. Yeah.
And again, that loitering, no, that
Yeah.
is that is very beautifully Sri Aurobindo brought it here. No, it is a very common word, no, that roaming
Yes.
carelessly. Yeah.
Roaming carelessly. Yeah. Yeah. So now because owing to the fact that he is united with the vaster self, he can move carelessly. There is
Yeah.
no, as we, Kabir
Okay.
is, this befikre, being one with no worries at all. Then you can move carelessly. Yeah.
He made of miracle a normal act and turned to a common part of divine works magnificently natural at this height. Efforts that would shatter the strength of mortal hearts, pursued in a royalty of mighty ease, aims too sublime for nature's daily will, the gifts of the spirit crowding. They were his life's pattern and his privilege.
Yes, again, very beautiful lines. Continuing. Now we remember those lines which we came across on page number 20. Let me just take you there. Yeah, here. A prayer. Let me color it for you. A prayer, a master act, a king idea can link man's strength to a transcendent force, and then miracle is made the common rule. This now again, it's almost a similar reference that we find here on the page number 27, 26 actually. Yeah. He made of miracle a normal act. This is how life changes. This is what is unfolding of life. Life becomes an adventure. So far it has been a monotone, but now it becomes an adventure. One gets surprised at itself. One gets surprised at, wow, I was able to do that. I didn't know that I had the capacity to do that. Like almost like that, we are uh, growing in our thresholds. More and more we are getting to know of our own depths. So now, owing to the fact that he is connected to this infinity, he made of miracle a normal act. It's a normal thing. Miracle is a normal thing now. It does not, for a human being, miracle is something which happens only once in maybe a lifetime or twice, thrice in a lifetime. But now he is living in the domain of miracles. This is the beauty of this life, of being in touch with our deeper being. He made of miracle a normal act and turned to a common part of divine works. Magnificently natural at this height, efforts that would shatter the strength of mortal hearts, pursued in a royalty of mighty ease. Again, referring, as we were referring to Rama in Ramayana, picking up that bow so easily. So the efforts that would appear so difficult for a human being, how do you manage to do that? People may ask, how do you manage to do that? But for the being who is able to do that, it's effortless, owing to the fact that it is connecting himself to the deeper strength, to his own spirit, to his own essence, which is, the very fact that we use this word essence, it means essential to nature. Essence is something which can never ever be away from me. That is what is essence. And so it's our foolishness then when we think that I have come far away from my essence. It is not a possibility. So, but when we recognize and more live in a knowing of our essence, then it begins to manifest itself out. Then life becomes magic, pure magic. And efforts that would appear so limiting to human beings, being the ordinary or limited human being I am, I cannot imagine how did you do that. No, but for that, for Ashupati, it became almost like a magnificently natural. It became natural at this height where he started to live now. Beautiful words. Efforts that would shatter the strength. Now he was linked to the divine strength. Yataru, want to share?
Yeah, you said this, you said that it would seem so simple, right? Like it would look complicated, but for the person, like for Ashwapati in this case, it would be like effortless. So I was saying that sometimes we can do things that we can't even explain, right? Like
Exactly.
even like us, like normal,
Yes, yes.
like it, and you don't even know, and the other people find it so surprising that how.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, that is also there that you don't even, it becomes like it's like just something is there and you can't put it in words. So,
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes. So each and every line is actually related to our own life. So thank you very much for bringing that up, because It's not some other Ashwapati that we are talking of, it's our life that we are talking of. And yes, and it's amazing that how we ignore these movements of life, where we were able to uh, uh, do something which we have no explanation for, and thought may come later and claim that I did it, but thought was not there, thought was not present. It was something else that connected us, and we were able to manifest itself out. Yeah. So this became his nature, and this is available to each one of us whenever we are ready to live that kind of a life. Whenever we feel that the reign of the ego is over now, the kingdom of ego is over, I am ready, you know, and then the life begins to kind of change in its own way. Pursued in a royalty of mighty ease, beautiful lines. Aims too sublime for nature's daily will, you know pursuing those aims which appear, oh my god, I'm just occupied in the roti kapda and makan. How on earth can I think myself plunging into these sublime aims? But yes, it is possible. Each one of us can do it. Ashwapati is also a human being. He is also a mortal being. And when we read in the beginning that he did not lose touch with his divine essence, all of us are divine in nature, and we can never lose touch of our divine origin. It is just that we stop caring to remember who we are. We go too much on the face values, and we buy too much in the commonly held beliefs that yes, you are limited being, and this is what you are capable of, and rest is not in your domain. We buy too easily in these thoughts. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think like how they were talking about reason. Like
Yeah.
one thing if I look at myself, reason is something that had held me back like growing up because it just did not make sense to kind of, and you could never put it in words, you could never explain,
Yes.
like so it's just because it was like mind is considered the highest,
Mm.
in a regular like wise, intelligent person.
Mm.
And if something is unexplainable, then you better just shove it away, right? Because you would not be understood and it would just kind of make things odd. So,
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think that would be then one of the reasons that why we uh, ceaselessly ignore these mighty deeds that happen in our lives. That because reason will come into picture and it will say, no, no, it may have happened once, but it is not your capacity. And there we buy it immediately.
yeah, and the reason, although something inside you knows it has happened, right? And yet the reason even now tries to kind of, are you sure? You know, it always wants to put in that thing to make it kind of, that doubt thing, to
Doubt.
make it powerless, right?
Yes.
Kind of it so that 100%.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that is the difference between, say, a Meera, right? Like she didn't need to be told. She didn't need to be like it. She was beyond reason, right? Like kuch tark vitark ka, like she had
Yeah.
crossed that boundary of reason. Sorry, you were saying
Yes.
something.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. And this is actually the, if I can say, one of the symptoms. It is a signal when we are not able to explain things, uh, and there are things which are more understood in silence and stillness rather than through mind's words and logic. This is one of the symptoms that it is in the right domain. It is connecting us to our deeper essence, where the mind stops, the word stops. And that is why stillness and silence has been considered almost the direct path to the self discovery. But yeah, as we were discussing, it only comes in time as the veils of ignorance are shed. Only in time this we become available to, if I can say, listen to the stillness, be with the stillness, and the mind is then not suffering in the that, oh my god, words are not there, oh my god, words are not there. It is not suffering, oh my god, logic is not there. Mind almost feels incapable that what would I do here? मेरा तो कोई काम ही नहीं है यहाँ पे, मेरे को तो मतलब I am almost बेरोजगार in this domain. I feel jobless in this domain, and that's why it will create again and again doubts, because it wants some job and it feels virtually threatened without any job. And in the domain of the soul, in the domain of the spirit, mind does not have the job, the regular kind of a job. Yeah.
And also, Sri Aurobindo put the reason in capital letter, no, in between actually.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
why it has got a hold, no, in everyone's life.
Yeah.
That is why that capital letter is
Capital.
coming. Yeah.
And even, when I was going through these lines, where Sri Aurobindo shares how he was writing Savitri, and somebody, I think it was Amal Kiran, who asked him that, have you thought about this? Something like that, he asked him. And he said that thinking, I have not touched that domain in a long time. So
Correct.
as if the direct knowledge was pouring into, Savitri, whatever works Sri Aurobindo was doing. And thinking was not necessary. The mind's intermediation was not necessary at all. Yeah. So this is what became natural for Ashwapati, and for now, what for us normally what is natural is thinking through the mind. But now thinking beyond the mind became natural. Having knowledge and wisdom beyond the mind. I just know, as Taru was sharing, so we have this knowing. I have no reason. I cannot tell you why I came to it. I just know that this needs to be done. I just know that this is true. And there is no explanation you can give it to anyone. Maybe people who are very deeply connected to you at the soul level, people who are deeply connected to you at the truth level. Maybe with them you can share that I just know, and the other person would understand without the exchange of words. That can happen. But the words actually make it more confusing, rather than just being with this knowing that I know that it is true. I know that I must walk this path. Why? I don't know. I cannot tell you. So, this is the realm of pure knowing, where the mind ceases to be. And this is what we call the cessation of mind, cessation of going back of the mind in its true source. And the source of mind is this pure knowing. I know. I know. And when from this knowing, this pure knowing, as if a wave arises which becomes the finite mind in order to know the things and objects and persons and external stuff. As if a wave rises out from this pure knowing and wants to know the objects of perception, and then it has to go back and merge into this pure knowing. So this is the origin, if one can say, the moving back of the mind, dissolution of the mind in back into its source whenever it's not needed. The mind is at rest in that pure knowing. I know I am. Not I think I am. I know I am. And there is no words that need to be associated with that. Yes. The gifts of the spirit crowding came to him. Now, owing to this wideness, the fullness and vastness of nature that is going on, the gifts of spirit, as if they came in bounty. All the expressions and manifestations of the spirit, they came in bounty. Crowding came to him. They were his life's pattern and his privilege. This was the privilege granted to Ashwapati. And this became life's pattern. Miracle became a pattern of life. Beautiful. This is how life opens itself up whenever the being is ready. A newness, as if life is rebirthing itself every day, every moment. And what are the gifts? Now there is a description of the gifts. Yes.
A pure perception lent its lucent joy. Its intimate vision waited not to think. It enveloped all nature in single glance. It looked into the very self of things. Deceived no more by form, he saw the soul.
Yes. Now, owing to the cessation of the mind, finite mind, owing to the deconstruction of the mental construct of being a separate individuality, owing to that limits being shed away, a pure perception lent its lucent joy. Pure perception. How we normally perceive in day-to-day life is through our senses. I touch, I taste, and then I know, then I perceive. I see, I hear, and then I perceive. And mostly it is a limiting perception. Although that perception itself, if refined, can take us very back to our deepest being. All these senses, and that is why Mother and Sri Aurobindo talk about refinement of senses. They don't talk about shunning away of senses like an ascetic. They don't talk about that. They talk about refinement of senses. Because when I am not trying to complete myself through my sense perceptions, I am not trying to fulfill my demands through sense perceptions, then the sense perceptions actually become a joy. They do not become suffering for me now, because I'm not trying to use them as a means to an end. That I'm feeling this lack and sense of uh, incompletion, and now through sense perceptions, through finding an object, through finding a person, through finding a relationship, I would be complete. So that is not happening anymore, and that's why the sense perceptions can become a source of knowledge. They can become a source of joy. So now the way of perceiving the world is not only through sense perceptions or through the mind. It is direct knowledge, a direct knowing, as if something in it, in Ashwapati, goes straight, deep, and touches the other being in the center, into the heart, the depths of the heart. A pure perception, perceiving not through the limited framework of the mind, a larger view, pure perception, a knowing which is not mixed with the ego sense, a knowing in which my own selfish demands and manipulative agendas are not working. It's a non mixture, it's a purity that is there. A pure perception lent its lucent joy, and whenever we are able to perceive things in totality, in a larger vision, always there is a joy associated with it. So that is the symptom of the spirit. That is a signal that the spirit is in function. That joy is associated with that perception. It is not a limiting perception. It is not making my own boundaries strong and hence also making the other person's boundaries strong. That is not happening. Its intimate vision waited not to think. So I am having a vision. The vision is still there, but I am not dependent on thinking for the vision to be. This is what we were sharing earlier, the direct knowing that I know this happened and this is true. I know this is truth. There may be no logical, reasonable explanation. Its intimate vision waited not to think. It enveloped all nature in a single glance. One vision, one sharpness of this eye, single glance at anything that we see in nature and all around. And we go to the depths of the being. We go beyond the face value, tearing away, piercing away the veils that the forms appear to manifest. You are looking at an ant and you see something different there, more than an ant. You're looking at a tree or maybe ants eating up a dead ant, and you see something beyond that form there. And it was only through the form that you obviously went there, but as if you pierce through all those layers of form and manifestation. So thinking was not required. It was a direct insight, direct intuition that he got available to. It looked into the very self of things, that oneness that connects each one of us, that common thread of self, of knowing, of life that connects each one of us beyond forms. It looked straight there. Deceived no more by form, he saw the soul. We are often, the way we live, we are often just, we stop at the face value. Oh my God, I have this disease which is manifesting itself like that. We stop there. We as if uh, we just feel that our strength is not able to take us any more far, because this is such a mighty thing that is standing in front of me, a disease, a chronic illness. Deceived no more by form, he saw the soul. What is the disease trying to tell me? Going beyond the form, not threatened. Again, that comes, what Radhika, the line that Radhika was sharing that she liked, the fearless will for knowledge. So even when a disease is happening to the body, I'm just fearlessly going closer and closer to it. So disease also becomes an opportunity to expand and to grow in consciousness. It does not become a stopper. It does not inhibit my growth. It becomes a stepping stone. Yeah, anything from here? Okay, so this, this pure perception, maybe I'll just like to maybe share a few lines here. I don't know how much in detail I may be able to go, but let me just touch here. So here, just like sun is a light onto itself. So just like that, and then after that, sun is a light onto others. And just like that, this perception, pure perception or pure awareness does not depend on objects of perception. The pure perception, if I can call that perception, for example, take this example, that pure awareness is this light, the light of awareness. And if we just compare itself to the sun, now sun does not need any external light. It is lighting up itself. So pure awareness, which is the base of the all creation, it is an awareness onto itself, in the sense it is aware of itself. I am aware that I am aware. So the sun is lighting himself up. It is not dependent on any external situation to light himself up. This is the quality of the light of our being. That the light of our being is not dependent on external situations for the light to be. It is sufficient onto itself. It is complete in itself. And when an object comes in perception, when something externally appears, for example, you were talking of a disease, now I want to understand it, now I want to go close to it. So what happens is, this light of awareness goes closer, as if goes very intimate to the disease. And the more and more the light falls on the darkness in the disease, the more it is known that the disease was only a transfiguration. It was actually something else. So nothing happened to the light. The light is still there. Just like nothing happens to the sun burns throughout. But in the light of the sun, objects are seen, things are seen. Things that were in dampness so far are being shed light upon. So this is what I wanted to share just when I was reading these lines, a pure perception, a perception which is not tainted by anything, which is sufficient onto itself. and that is the joy of the being. It's lucent joy. Yeah. So let us take up maybe, I don't know how many lines, few more lines, and then we will see. Yeah, who would like to read?
In
In
being,
being,
it
it
knew
knew
what
what
love
love
to
to
them.
them.
It
It
sees the
sees the
idea
idea
in
in
mind,
mind,
the
the
wish in
wish
the
in
heart.
the heart.
It
It
plucked out
plucks out
from
from
grey
grave
folds of
folds of
secrecy
secrecy,
the
the
motives
motive
which from their own sight
which
men
men
hide.
hide.
Yes. So now, owing to this faculty of direct perception,
नहीं आप मेरे को लाओ मैं आपको कराती हूँ.
owing to this faculty of direct perception, he was able to directly see in each and every human being what even they were not able to see. In beings, it knew what lurked to them unknown. You know, many a times our own hidden manipulations we are not able to see. Many a times, most of the times, our own vital demands and cravings are actually the propellers of our actions, but we are not able to admit that yes, this is why I am acting. Yes, this is the manipulation that I am pursuing. We are not able to admit that. Although it is there within us, there is a faint knowing of that, but something in us does not want to admit that this is where I am coming from. This happens with virtually almost everyone at some or other point of time, or sometimes a whole lifetime. In beings, this pure perception knew what lurked to them unknown. That this is what you are hiding. This is where you are coming from. This is what your motive is. See it clearly. So that pure perception was able to see that without any doubt. It seized the idea in mind, the wish in the heart. It plucked out from grey folds of secrecy the motives which from their own sight men hide. We hide our own motives from ourselves, and in that sense we become our own enemy. Why our own enemy? Because then we become a partner of the ego, the separate self. Fulfill my demand, and that person is not fulfilling your demand. And we begin to again and again take as if we are defending our own actions, that yes, this is why my demand should be fulfilled. And we are not able to hit at the root most of the times, that I do feel a sense of incompletion within, and that is why I want this person or the relationship or the job or the office to stay close to me, otherwise I feel so threatened. We are not able to admit that, we are not able to see that. And this pure perception that awakened in Ashwapati was able to directly hit at the root of the where my action is arising from, where my manipulation or words that I speak are arising from. Even the human beings themselves are not able to see, but Ashwapati was able to see this very, very clearly, very starkly. Yeah. And this is where we come upon to what Mother and Sri Aurobindo call as the desire soul. This the one in us which is always seeking. Because the separate self, the more I identify with this separate identity called myself as the person, the more I will see that I will forever be seeking validation from people, seeking understanding from people, seeking, oh my God, this person at least should understand me, that job should understand me, I should at least get this much of this is all coming from the desire soul. And the movement of our life, human evolution, is walking as if I can use these words, walking from the desire soul to the true soul. And the true soul is forever complete into itself. It does not wait for the demands to be fulfilled in order to live life. It does not go according to its moods, that pehle meri demand puri karo and then I will do whatever is required. So true soul is complete into itself. And the desire soul is always desiring. So desire soul is very closely, it's actually one with the ego or with the separate self. The more I am desiring in life and the more I am pursuing my desires, the more I am actually solidifying my separate self. And as and when I become ready, I look at my desires, and that looking is the light of pure awareness. That is what who I am. And in the light of pure awareness, desires sublimate. They cannot stay. They cannot throw their tantrums in the light of pure awareness. So the more I establish myself as the light of knowing, the light of awareness, the more I will feel less and less a need to go by every desire and whim and fancy. Again, this obviously happens in time, although we have choice every moment. But the way we are designed, it seems to happen in time. Life's experiences teach me something, and then but this should not become a excuse that because it happens in time and hence I should not be doing it right now. The step is needed right now, if one can call it a step. The light of pure knowing oneself as pure knowing is needed right now, because without that I can never be at rest. Without that I will never be at ease with myself, and without that I will forever be a burden onto other people. Fulfill my demands. This is something we keep on doing throughout life. Yeah. So let's just take up last few lines. If not any comments, please share, and then we'll uh, make it a day. Yeah.
He felt the beating life in other men invade him with their happiness and their grief, their love, their anger, their unspoken hopes, entered in currents or in pouring waves into the immobile ocean of his calm.
G. He felt the beating life in other men. Now, this is something which comes and goes, I would say, many a times to us mortal human beings also. He felt the beating life in other men. In moments of life when we are porous to grace, in moments of life where the separate self is not existing, in those moments of openness in lives, in our life, we do feel a oneness with the whole humanity, with the whole, not even humanity, the whole of existence. He felt the beating life in other men invade him with their happiness and their grief. Now, as if all these waves of happiness of other people and the grief and loss and sorrow of other people, it came as waves pouring into this immobile ocean, which Ashupati was kind of, manifesting. Immobile, still ocean, as if those waves from all around people, all their happinesses, little joys and pleasures and grief and sorrow, they all came as great waves, and they landed up in this still ocean called Ashwapati. Invade him with their happiness and grief, their love, their anger, and their unspoken hopes, as if owing to the fact that the veils were not there anymore, the veils of separativity, he was able to connect very deeply with what the other person is going through, very deeply, as if he's knowing them through identity, as if he's one with them. There is no separation. Yet into the immobile ocean of his calm. So they did enter like currents or pouring waves into the ocean of his calm, but he who he was, he remained untouched. Usually whenever we talk about people who are so-called empaths, they suck other people's sorrow or as if other person is angry, something in me really vibrates very heavily. So that is not what is happening here. Ashwapati is now available to a very, very still and calm poise within himself. And that stillness and poise within himself is making him strong and capable to receive these waves, which can actually be very disturbing in nature. And thank God for the veil of ignorance. Thank God for the veil of separation of ego. They do not come to us. I am able to maintain my own individuality. Otherwise, if I was so open and porous all the time and not strong so far, every person's anger or every person's sorrow and grief will just sway me away, right? This would happen. So that's the protecting role of ignorance or reason. So far, I am living in ignorance as the mortal being, and not as a spirit. This protecting bar of ego helps me to maintain my sanity. But now, this maintenance of sanity is not needed for Ashwapati. He is the spirit himself. And the spirit is so calm and so still and poised and all pervading that it will not be disturbed now. It is not a limited entity, it is the vastness of space itself. Imagine a tsunami is coming. Now, no matter how strong a building is, even it may be an Empire State Building, the strongest building one can imagine, it will need to protect itself because it is limited in nature. But the space, the air, does it need to protect itself? Does the space go helter skelter? Oh my God, the tsunami is coming, save me, save me. Why not? Because the space is limitless. The space is as if not even there in finiteness. It is not even there in limited capacity. That's what is everywhere. It is limitless. So when we get in touch with this limitlessness, the poise and the strength is so strong that even a tsunami, when it comes, it is not able to shatter me, because I am not something finite or limited like a building which can be shattered by the tsunami. Now, this is the beauty of getting in touch with that infinite calm and poise. This is the divine strength, unshatterable divine strength. Yes, the body may break, so what? Yes, the mind may break, so what? And yes, the feelings may go helter skelter, so what? Who I am, the pure light of awareness, can never ever be touched. Now, this is the unshakable faith in one's own true being. This is our essence. And this is where one must remind oneself to station, come back, come back, come back. No, not even station, because we are there. We just forget. We forget. So we remember who I truly am. And whenever we are going through mental confusion, mental haze, again, remind yourself, who I am is the one who is aware of these movements, not the one who is feeling the lack, not the one who is feeling disturbed. I am the one who is able to see the disturbance and hence unperturbed by the disturbance. This is where remembrance again come into picture. Yeah, so I think I've said enough and my throat is really drying up of saying too much. So if there are any comments, please share. Okay, so in absence of any comments, I would take it as a pure presence. Thank you for joining in. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.